Hello, my name's Ian. Today I'm going to show you how to reload 308 for your AR10 rifle. For powder, I like to use Ogden BLC2 ball type powder. I've had great success with this powder and 180 grain bullets. This powder is also the type found in military rounds and is great for making M80 rounds or 5.56. It's also an extremely easy powder to meter. Extruded type powders have led to extreme pressure signs in my AR10 and have blown primers and were very inconsistent downrange in their group size. For primers, I like to use standard Winchester large rifle and CCI number 200. These primers are just fine and have never let me down in my AR10. They're both consistent and hard enough to not be set off while chambering by the floating firing pin. I have no preference of either. However, if you're going to use one or the other, your zero is going to change. So whenever you make your load data, make sure you figure out which one of these two you want, or just figure out what the changes in your zero are, or maybe your burn rate, or just know how inconsistent or more consistent it is with either one. So whatever you can find in your town, work with it, make good load. Just know when you switch primers, you're switching the recipe. For brass, ideally I would use Lake City brass because it is much thicker than other brands and was designed for the violent action of automatic firearms. The cycling of my AR10 is relentless on brass, and with softer and thin-walled casings, they do not last too long in my AR10. Upon ejection, the rims are bent and the walls are crushed in, and I have to throw away that brass because the shoulders are unusable. Another issue I have is with federal brass having primer pockets that will widen out and loosen, and my primers will fall out in the magazine, and I'll have powder that will jam up my gun and my magazine after about the third or fourth loading with federal. Military rounds also have crimp primer pockets when you first get them for this reason, so that way whenever a machine gun's firing it won't end up having the primer pop out. You can use any brand of brass for this. Just for AR10s, if you're going to be using the brass on a regular occurrence, it would be best for you to get military style NATO brass. For bullets, I like to use 180 grain Hornady SST bullets. You will need to play around to find a bullet that suits you best. I've used many types and shapes without malfunction for feeding. The only thing that matters is that you are able to seat the bullet so that way it can clear the lip of the magazine. With an AR10, what you're basing your seating depth off of is the magazine, not the length to the rifling. Now it's time for us to begin the reloading process. First, you must deprime and resize your brass. With the AR10, you must full-length resize your brass. Only neck sizing will lead to increased friction and possible failure to feeds within your firearm. The first part of the brass prep process is you're going to need to lube your cases for the resizing process. There's various methods for lubing up your cases. So there's different types of lubes you could put onto the cases themselves, right? And you can use a stamp pad that you've put the lube on, but that's a real waste of time and it takes fucking ever. So just get rid of this shit. You don't need any of that. What you want is some of this nice spray on shit. You can make it yourself, or you can get in this like aerosol can. This shit's expensive. You can learn how to make it yourself on YouTube real quick, but all you do, you get this shit, find you a nice plastic bag, and you just spray that shit in there. You shake and bake. Because you don't want to spend all day rolling these one by one on that stupid ass fucking trackpad and then have your die get filled up with a bunch of thick ass lube. This shit, it's nice and thin. It's fantastic. So you just fucking shake that shit up. And now we're ready to resize these fuckers. Full length resize. we've resized our brass, we need to trim our brass down to the size of 2.015 inches. So right there. So you get a trimming system of some sort. I like to use this lathe style Hornady one, and just put that in there. There we go. So, perfect size. Now that we've trimmed the cases to length, all we need to do is deburr from the actual trimming process. So you just take a chamfering tool, and just do the inside and the outside. I like the ones that you can use by hand best. You don't have to use a lot of raw pressure. You just kind of do a few rotations, just get that edge off, and then you're good. Just keep doing that to all of them. Now it's time to clean the brass. I use an ultrasonic cleaner I got at Harbor Freight. There's other methods you can use as well. You could fill up a mason jar with soap and water and a little bit of vinegar, or you could even get a tumbler. You'll have to figure out which method works best for you. But for me, I like using the ultrasonic cleaner because I can pour it all in there. I'm not worried about having perfectly sparkly brass. All I want is the carbon that's inside of the brass to be mostly gone. That, and so I can get the primer pockets to also loosen their carbon buildup. So now I've got those out of the cleaner. It's just time to dry them off real quick, and then I'm going to throw them into a oven at just under 200 degrees for about 45 minutes. And what that's going to do is going to get all the moisture off these cases, because when you reprime, you don't want there to be moisture, and when you put powder in, you definitely don't want any moisture in there either. So, I already have them on an oven tray. And take them over to the toaster oven. Alright, so now I'm at the toaster oven. I've got it set so that way it's just under about like 215 degrees, maybe it's like 200-ish degrees. Just gonna put that in there. And then just come back when it's done. So now that our brass is dry, it's time to reprime it. So I'm just gonna go through and look at the little primer pockets, and if there's any carbon buildup in there, I'm just gonna scrape it out real quick. And then once I'm done with that, I'm gonna put it in the press. I take one of my primers, I'm gonna put it in the little primer seeder. One thing to check for is to make sure that your primer is deeper than the actual rim of the cartridge, because you may have some primers that will be sticking out just a little bit, so you'll have to push them in just a little bit harder, or maybe you'll come across one that you forgot to decrimp, and you won't put that off to the side, because if you try to force that, you'll set the primer off, or you'll just have a mangled primer or something. So you just want to be careful in doing that. Now that brass prep portion is complete, now it's time to move on to pouring the powder. So you're going to have to find a starting load from a reloading manual, or maybe we'll find one online or whatever. You don't want to use someone else's recipe because your gun's going to be different. So you're going to have to do, from the very start, you're going to have to go through a starting load and work your way up. And you're going to have to figure out which round is the most well-performing out of your gun, which one's going to be the most accurate and isn't going to mess up your gas system or be overgassed and destroy your brass or your gun. So for me, with Walk 2 over here, I'm able to use 42 grains as my start, and then I work my way up in increments of 0.2. And I'll make 6 different batches of 5 rounds, and then I'll go shoot, and I'll record which ones shot the best, and then I'll make that be my primary load, and maybe I'll tweak that one a little bit to get just a little more precise. But once you have your recipe, you can just start cranking them out. So I have 42 grains already poured and weighed, so all I gotta do is put it into a case. Just go grab that, grab a bullet, and now from here I'm going to seat the bullet. I'm going to work it down until it fits into the magazine. I'm not really worried about how far from the rifling it is. I only care about it fitting into a magazine. So now I have a round for reference and a magazine, and all I'm going to do is slowly work the bullet down until it is in the magazine. So, the bullet's seated, but it's not seated anywhere near where it needs to be. So now I'm just going to slowly work it down until it's about the same height. So now we can see the 2 rounds are about the same height, so I'm going to stick my round into the magazine to see if it will sit in there. So that's going to work just fine. So now that's going to be the height I'm going to leave the die at, and I'm just going to make my rounds like that, make my batches, and once I'm done, I'm going to crimp. So now we have our 30 rounds done, separated into their 5 groups in the rows. The last step to complete the ammo is to crimp. You absolutely need to crimp the bullets, because if you don't, as you fire your AR, it's going to have a recoil impulse that will slowly pull the bullets in and out of their necks. So this is an absolutely necessary step for an AR10. So now all these rounds are done, so now it's time to go shoot and record the results. Alright, so now I'm at the range. So what I have here is a target. Up top, I'm firing 15 rounds of 175 grain Sierra Match King. So that way I can confirm the 0 in my scope. And from there, I'm going to work my way down in groups of 5 in the various powder loadings. And I'm going to calculate the distance of the MOA, so we're going to see which one's most accurate. But at the same time, as I'm firing my groups of 5, I'm going to fire my 5, I'm going to pick up the brass, I'm going to put it back where it was, so when we're done, we'll be able to see what type of pressure signs we're getting, and that way we can figure out which loading is the best for us, or if we are having far too extreme pressure signs, we can stop, take the remaining rounds home, and we can disassemble them and try to restart, because maybe the scale wasn't correct, maybe I didn't pay attention or whatever, I don't know, but you don't want to fire ammo and keep progressing and just kind of riding the lightning, because you might end up with a broken gun or maybe a trip to the hospital. So, I'm going to move my target out to 100 meters, and I'm going to begin the tests. this I've fired all my rounds, and you can see that they all look good. There's no punctured primers, no primers coming out, there's no destroyed rims. Everything's come out just the way it should, and this is how you want your ammo to come out.
Yep.
If you have any strange issues going on, you either have too little powder, or you have way too much powder, and you're gonna end up having something very catastrophic happen very soon. So this is what you ideally want all your rounds to look like, and this will be safe to reload also for a few more. So now I'm back in the range, and I'm able to go over the data that I collected with my 6 loadings. So over here we have the 42 grain, and that was a 1.23 MOA loading. Then we have it shrink just barely with the 4.2, and then it starts to grow and grow and grow. And then over here at the 43 grain, now this is a very nice group, and I excluded this last one because I significantly pulled that shot, and so I excluded that. Now on paper this seems to be the best loading, and so I'm going to make more of it to confirm whether or not that is the best, along with the 42.2, because those were the 2 winners. Now a lot of this can also be human error because I haven't practiced in a hot minute. So these rounds could be perfectly fine, and they could shrink the groups even more if I just focus just a little bit more. But based on the data that I've collected, these are the 2 that I'm going to go ahead and try to refine, and then we'll figure out which of those 2 is a better performing round. So another thing is, I was able to get all 30 of the rounds I made to cycle perfectly, not have any dented rims, not have any punctured primers, no excessive pressure signs at all, which means that these are very good loads for the gas system in this gun, so they're safe to make. So now I've collected data to make a safe load. So not all guns are the same, and you should not use someone else's load data. What you should do is this exact same process to make yourself a load that works perfectly in your AR10. Thank you for watching my video. Bye.